And it's showtime. G'day, guys. Oh, got to plug in. Let me just plug in. And we're back. Yes, it would have to be T1 that was here first. Not surprising. Not at all. Boo. Yes. Sort of needs a wake up sort of. Yes. Hit the like button. Please. Please. Hope you're sharing this around as well amongst your friends. Yes, I hope everyone is well and all that. Yeah, I've still got a bit of a bloody sniffle. Yes. Unfortunately, we get these really cold nights, and I'm still doing a few later walks, which I probably should cut out because it's not breathing in cold air. It's probably not the best thing. So giving myself a bit of a respiratory thing. And my mate said, "Oh, you're not wearing your fucking beanie, you know, isn't it?" Because it was really fresh, cold. And I said, because I didn't cut my hair, as you've probably obviously noticed, you know, sort of look, the length is still there. Yeah, I know. Sort of brushed it back a bit. It still hasn't dried properly. It's a bit of a mess. Yeah, couldn't be bothered. Actually, the lady that actually cuts my hair, she was away next week. Anyway, shit happens. Yeah, definitely was a struggle this morning to get out of bed. Went late to bed. Not a good thing. Yes, I do a lot of idiotic things, wrong things. Late to bed, out in the cold. Don't wear appropriate clothing. Yeah, do everything wrong. Well, somebody has to. I need to test these things. They fail on me, and then, you know, I can just tell you guys, you know, don't do this. Yes. I just plucked out a few hairs. That's about it, you know. Something you're very familiar with, you know. Well, somebody has to be. You mean low? So you're a low life of vegetard low life. Here he is. G'day, mate. Good to see you.
Let me get that food off my face. Should have checked that before I came home.
Mate, you heard the witch's name and you appeared.
No, I didn't hear a damn thing. I've been doing my own thing. So how are we?
Ian's spying on behalf of her.
Oh, good. I'm here for probably about 45 minutes or less, just so you know, boys and girls, because I have to take Pim to lunch.
Sounds good.
Yes, we're going to go down to a local gastro pub that does excellent steak meals. And when you say, "Don't bring me chips, don't bring me salad, don't even ask me to bring chips or salad," they listen and they don't. So that's good.
Nice.
Yep. Of course, I'll still have the beer, the meat juice. I mean, the meat juice.
Obviously.
Yes.
That's a given. You know.
Yes.
We had some really big, thick steaks, that thick, like a double steak type thing yesterday. Fucking hell. That was a struggle getting through. It took a while, I can tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really nice meal.
In latest amusing news, Harry, I can now confirm that Michelle Lowe believes that a comment made by someone on her live stream that isn't me, suggesting that I am a bully, is proof that I am a bully. Awesome.
It's great
All right,
logic.
love.
She has this great logic.
Oh, you see, she has no evidence, Harry. She's only got anecdotes. That's all she's got. Just anecdotes. No evidence. That's the problem. I'll tell you what the real problem is. The real problem is she loves Bart. She can't do without him.
She's missing you, mate. You know,
I know.
You know, she dumped Frankie. She had enough of Frankie because she was getting all these rejections, and she sort of literally put her teeth. You know,
her penis isn't quite big enough for Frank. To be fair, Frank likes big ones. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So she's basically trolling you now.
Yeah.
She's got in here as a local agent.
Good. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. I've been told she made a live stream about me this morning, which I knew she was doing, which was slanderous, but I'm yet to be offered any timestamps from anybody that would give me reason to check it out. But what I'm going to see if I can do is download her live stream for my own reference later to see whether or not it is a fair live stream, or whether or not indeed it contains actionable material. I mean, I've made the inquiries I need to make. I'll be appointing a UK-based solicitor this week to initiate the claims that I need to initiate, if I decide I need to initiate them. Of course, it costs money, as you all well know, to retain legal aid and to get them to lodge complaints against people in various courthouses around the world and things like that. There would have to be a real benefit in so doing, and paying a significant amount of money just to get 1 or 2 or 3 videos taken down wouldn't cover it. If, however, getting 3 videos taken down would lead to 3 strikes and lead to the deletion of that channel, that might be worth it. Not for any other reason, Harry, than I'm actually a philanthropist. I'm actually trying to do public good here.
You are,
and getting rid of that hag. You know, no, I'm kidding. I'm being slightly facetious. You know, we mustn't encourage such behavior on YouTube or anywhere else. But you know, at the end of the day, all this stuff about you know, channel deletions and all this kind of stuff and silencing free speech and all this bullshit. Of course, that's where they're going to go. But let's be very clear here. I don't set the YouTube rules. YouTube doesn't listen to me. I promise you, YouTube doesn't fucking listen to me, son.
Definitely certain about that.
The fact that Michelle Lowe has 2 strikes against copyright on her channel with respect to videos that belonged to me and still belong to me was not because I wanted YouTube to do that. I don't have any pull at YouTube. YouTube thinks I'm having a tremendous pull, frankly. YouTube doesn't actually want to help me. We've seen that clearly. I actually put in 4 complaints this week. 2 of them were rejected by YouTube and 2 of them were upheld because I'm right and she's wrong. She has stolen my intellectual property. It was not significantly transformed. It was not fair use under any definition. It was illegal theft of my property. Of course, I'm going to protect my rights as a YouTube creator and put in a complaint asking YouTube to do something about it. They're failing to do so in terms of the other 2 I've put in. Okay, they're legally testable if I choose to do that. But that's where we're at with it. So just so everybody knows fully where the situation is on that one. Anyway, I didn't drop into completely steal your live stream. I'm just here for a short time, not a good time or a long time. So yeah, what's been happening before I dropped in so rudely?
Oh, we're getting some crazy questions. I didn't have a haircut because I didn't get around getting a haircut this week. I may do it next week. No promises. I'll keep them guessing for a while. So you got to keep the natives excited. You know, guessing what's going to happen next with Harry.
Yes.
You know.
Right.
And then I get something like this from Sam. Isn't great hair senescence?
Yes, indeed.
Who has that been directed
Indeed.
to? I'm not sure. Therefore, it's,
Unknown.
So so you want me to pull it out? That sort of came out the wrong way.
So you want me to pull out? Is that what the question was?
I don't know what these characters are talking about. Yes, you can't trust them. Look at Ian. Look at Ian. He's trolling like mad. He's trolling like mad.
There we go. Yes, apparently I'm a bully because somebody else said so. Well, that's good enough proof for any court of law anywhere in the world, isn't it? Obviously.
Oh, obviously, our dear friend Hench. Oh, he's such an adorable, cute little thing.
Yeah. Also, he opened a stupid gob. He opened a stupid gob on a live stream not so very long ago, and slandered me. He said I am well known for doxing people. Whoops! Same mistake that Richard Burgess made. You'll be hearing from the lawyers too, son. Probably, if I can be bothered. Yeah, because I have never doxed anybody, so saying so is libel. It's slanderous. It's defamatory. It's illegal in any reasonable country in the world, and that includes the UK, Paul. So you'll probably be hearing from my lawyer sometime very soon if I can be asked. If I can get a good package deal, actually, on suing people who want to libel and slander me, because I have never doxed anybody.
Exactly.
What a shame. Dear oh dear.
Nah, wrong, Sam. I actually showed my genetics ages ago, and I actually have genetics to go grey very early. My mother went grey in her 30s. Yeah. So, and my cousins on my mother's side went grey in their 30s as well.
Right. I have genetics for very early hair loss.
So do I.
And also for a huge penis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I sort of have a cross between an elephant and some other sort of strange animal, but we won't get into that strange animal.
So Australians know all about strange animals, don't they?
Yeah, it's a little devil, I can tell you.
Yeah. That's just the sheep.
That's it.
Oh dear.
Yes. So the world comes with a variety of humans and their genetic traits and whatever else. But we have to remember is that over what you end up getting is something which is actually expressed over multiple generations, and certain genes get expressed more and more. So if you're eating inappropriate foods, a number of your ancestors over a number of generations, certain genes will get upregulated and will become more pronounced. And over time, that's why you don't see native populations, graying much earlier or things like, because they're not into the grain agricultural economy. We've been in it for about, depending on which part of the world, anywhere between 2,000 up to 6 or more thousand years. So it's a significant length of time for, different types of gene expression to be upregulated, and also some level of adaptation. It's still poor in comparison because, even major changes usually take anywhere between 50 or more thousand years. So the amount of years that we've had is just minuscule. And then we've put it on steroids in the last couple of decades, which, there's no way of
adapting. Paul from Norwich.
That's
Paul from Norwich. This meat juice says it's fruity.
Oh.
It's got blackberries in it. I'm starting to suspect this is not meat juice.
No, I suspect it isn't. It isn't, mate.
I hope Officer Tough Anal isn't watching.
Just read the small print.
This will make your cock get even bigger. Oh God! Well, let's get into it then.
Fuck. Hey,
Pim, you're driving to lunch.
I knew that was coming.
That's what she said last night too. I'm here all week.
Yeah, this crowd. Yes, we're watching a couple of dreamers.
Daydream believers. Yeah. And a homecoming queen.
Nice.
And a homecoming queen. Which one of us is the homecoming queen? I don't know, but we're both daydream believers, aren't we, Harry?
We definitely are, mate. We definitely are.
We are. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes, I'm getting hungry as well.
Yeah, it's nearly lunch. Well, it's 12:45 p.m. here, actually.
No, it's still early here.
Yeah.
It's 1:45, so fairly early, and I don't get into a meal until much later on.
Neither usually, but this is a special occasion.
Yes, that is true. You do have a special occasion. I sort of stick to about two meals a day now. Smaller one and a larger one. I don't know are you still doing OMAD or stuff like that, or
one a day. One a day. I just don't need any more.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
if you're not remotely active. So.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not, beyond it, my sort of lunchtime walk that I go, and then I do a bit of shopping and stuff like that. At the most at home, on the days that I actually do consume a bit more, I'm usually doing a bit of weightlifting. But if I'm not doing any weightlifting, I just cut it back to one meal as well. Mm-hmm. So, and it's only on the days that I'm doing a bit of weights and some sort of high intensity stuff, and that's only a couple of days a week, 2 or 3, and then basically I'll probably have a second meal. Second meal can vary, but it's just most people are just getting too much in there when they don't need it. Just overcooked my pork roast. Oh, poor piggy.
I know.
Poor little piggy.
Yeah, send it down to Nelson, Richard. I'll have it because I don't mind well cooked meat. It would be a shame to waste the piggy, wouldn't it? After she gave up her flesh for your sustenance. Get it down here. Don't be such a girl, Richard. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
But do send it down to me if you like. If there's a quick
express
courier,
post,
get it down to Nelson. Yeah. I don't know how long it takes to get from there to Nelson, but because it probably has to go on a boat or a plane.
Shit. Are they flying at the moment in New Zealand? What's happening?
Yeah. Everything's pretty normal here. The only thing you can't do, really, as far as I understand it, is come into the country without doing a quarantine procedure. I think. I'm not even sure. I'm not even watching the news anymore because it's such a lot of fucking nonsense.
Yeah, I know. Unless you're an infected US Marine, you can come into Darwin.
All right.
I was actually hoping to get up to the tropics because they had 0 days up there, and I was going, I can't get to Bali, I can't get to Southeast Asia anywhere. So I said, well, the next best thing is Darwin. I haven't been to Darwin for years, so I said, okay, that was looking like promising. And then we had the sort of situation in Melbourne, and then I'm going, oh, fuck that. And then I can't get the cat out anymore. So to send it to my younger sister. So Dad's stuck with a cat for another month or 2 or whatever. So he's sort of going, it's not going. And I go, no, it's not fucking going. I go, so you're stuck with it, Dad. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yes. So I'm hoping that I can get some sort of company, some of the transport companies down here getting direct flights to Perth. But nothing's actually flying at the moment, so maybe in August.
Right. Okay.
So it's bloody annoying. Let's put it that way. Chainsaw.
Cool.
The sort of cutlery that some people have at home is, quite disturbing.
I've got a chainsaw.
The way they get into their meat.
Yeah. I suppose at the end of the day, actually, if you do dispose of said destroyed pork, and you believe that you're being anthropic to the animals, at very worst, even bacteria will eat it. Won't they? So it will get consumed one way or the other. It's not truly wastage; it's just a shame because pork's good stuff. Occasionally,
veganism is a denial of entropy, that everything basically decays and everything basically gets recycled.
Yes.
It's the way nature works. So
Mm.
if you reject entropy, you reject basically that cycle of life and death.
Science, bitches.
Exactly.
Mm. Oh, God. They are so fucking stupid, aren't they?
Yeah, I know. It's
So I
just
just thought to throw that in there. Oh, God. How is it possible to be that fucking stupid? It's incredible.
It's wild. It's wild. They're sort of thinking. They I think they've literally twisted their minds in this sort of sophistry type thinking,
Yeah.
and it's just a bizarre way. You just have to look at them. Sometimes they say things and then they actually say the complete opposite, or they contradict themselves in just one sentence, and you're going, did you just realize what you actually did in terms of logic, Hegelian logic? And you go, did you just realize what you actually did? And they just,
Well,
they just
look, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a clear example. But here's one for you. I am an ethical vegan, and I eat lettuce, avocado, and them little nut things called almonds. Yes, I do. I'm an ethical vegan, me. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? I am also severely mentally deranged. Clearly.
But did you hear the other thing that she said? The witch?
Probably not. I was probably.
She actually said in one of her videos, she actually said that ecology is irrelevant. Diet is irrelevant. Ecology is irrelevant. Everything's irrelevant bar suffering. I'm going, well, if you want to get rid of suffering, you need to genocide everything on the planet so nothing ever suffers.
If she wants to get rid of suffering, she needs to sit down and shut the fuck up forever.
Exactly.
That will stop our suffering.
Well, she can go first.
Yes. Yes. She can she can do what she likes, of course. Except steal my intellectual property. That's not on.
That is exactly right.
Yes. Anyway,
some of my people, they do these strange things. They, I try to remind them that they shouldn't be doing very high dose flushes because it actually inhibits gluconeogenesis, lipolysis, and many other things. So stick to lower doses, guys, and you don't need all this other crazy stuff.
Wow.
Well, just improving redox potential and NAD plus, but. Because niacin is the only thing that inhibits CD38, the enzyme that basically degrades NAD in the long run. So I'm trying to coax them to. They just need low doses. They don't need to go crazy or just eat more pork and stuff like that has more niacin in it, and foods that are like tuna and other seafood that is high in niacin. Those sort of things is what you need to get a bit more in your diet as you get older. But I will be doing a nootropics thing to show there is another nootropics that can actually be used to avoid niacin flushes that can actually down-regulate CD38 without the flushes and everything else. But you will have to wait for that. So let's keep on going. What is Bird Brain saying?
Don't feed the drop birds. Yeah, good.
I can expect that.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to know what your meat juice is.
This one here, this particular one is an apple cider with blackberry rather than beer. I'm gluten intolerant, so beer doesn't not a good thing. I have drunk beer, of course, and when I do, it depends what you mean by beer, because like I spent, as you know, an amount of time in the Northern Hemisphere in places like England, for example.
Yes.
And their beer is a different thing to what it is here, very much.
Is it more? It's more hoppy.
Over there, beer is actually a live culture, room temperature entity, whereas the thing that we call beer down here is actually called lager. That's chilled and it's filtered and there's no yeast and dregs on it. It's not a live culture. It's, up there, beer means the room temperature live culture stuff. Love that stuff. Dark as fuck. Chocolatey.
That is like a meal.
Oh, yes. Because
that's
what all that yeast and shit.
Yeah, it was basically like a because water quality was shit in the past before sanitation. So it was basically, and not only it was also Germany, also Central Europe and all that. They did the same thing very much. A lot of the sort of monasteries in the northern part of Europe that brew beer for the same purposes. It was like a replacement meal that they actually used. So it was a very different thing. Early stuff that came to Australia, a lot of the problems with getting certain yeast type stuff over here without it sort of failing or perishing between here and there. And I think that, and also the heat of Australia, sort of really affected the sort of direction beer took in those years. In the early days, it was much more hoppy. I remember Tasmania's beer, like Cascade, and other brands used to, use a lot of hops down here. We used to have a big production of hops, and over time, it just, as grains came in and displaced them because they were cheaper, pretty much our beers were sort of all grain based now. There's very few that sometimes they put a bit like a hop flavorant in, or they may put a smaller percentage just to get that little bit of flavor. But really, it's not like the old beers. I remember even in the 70s tasting beer, and now it just doesn't do anything for me. I'm sort of a bit like yourself. If I do go out and I need to be sociable, I sort of stick to sort of ciders. Because I go, it's sugar, fine, but I'll get it out. I go for low carb type ciders. I'll get it out of my system within a 24 to 48 hour sort of thing, and I'm not really. It's not going to be that much of a problem. It's not like
breaking news, Harry. Breaking news from Lucas. Grant Imihara, who used to be on the MythBusters program, has died.
Oh,
victim of a brain aneurysm, apparently.
Shit.
That's sad news.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Young man too.
Oh, look, there's, you don't know what unless you check whether it's genetics, whether it's lifestyle, who knows, whether people get exposed to certain things. There's so many factors that can play. I always go, well, unless I've done the forensic or I've seen the forensics, I'm not going to make a comment. But yes, it is a very young age. Yes. Yep. So
there you go. Sad news. But sounded like you were talking about wanting some actual,
Can you answer this for me? Can you answer this for me, mate?
How many bird brains does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, it depends on, can they get inside the light bulb in the first place, Harry?
Can they use beak? Or, are they allowed to use the beak as well?
Yeah. Screwing in a light bulb, fascinating, but how do you get inside the light bulb?
That would be interesting. I think he's setting the bird brain up. Yeah. I think, yes, this is, T1.
Come on, T2.
Can be quite nasty, Setting it, let's fry that bird brain, that's what he's thinking, it's very macabre, sort of thinking that's coming from Perth. Believe me. You got to keep you got to keep your eye on these trolls.
Mate, I used to live in Perth, so I do know what goes on over there. I used to live in Atterdale, postcode 6156. There you go. Isn't that amazing? I lived there for 6 months in 1991, and I can still tell you the postcode was Atterdale 6156. Incredible, isn't
it? Bloody hell.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And yet, I can't remember what I said yesterday. Either that or Pim's telling me lies. I don't know which it
is. It must have made Perth must have had an impression on you. That's basically it. I can remember. Okay. It was like that. It really traumatized you then, mate. No wonder you can't forget it.
I got so incredibly sunburned one day at the Wacker. While all the whole time sledging the fuck out of David Boone. 5'2" Tasmanian with the flared pants.
Hey, yeah, style.
and that moustache that Booney had.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, those were the days.
They were.
Very different. Oh,
Yeah.
look, another person scared of tuna. Go and
Oh,
check
my God.
out my video on selenium and seafood and stuff like that. Not an issue. Tuna is very high in selenium, so it basically, selenide will basically chelate mercury out of the system and cadmium or whatever else. So it is a non-issue. So check my vid, and because that would be a long explanation, and you'll get all your answers there.
Yep. All your answers.
We try to help. What do you guys think of Elliot's view on thiamine deficiency and stuff like that? What's your sort of take on his sort of B1?
I have to be honest and say I haven't had time to really follow anything Elliot has been up to for some time, and not just Elliot. Actually, it's all the people that I know I generally agree with in terms of their approach to life at large. Because I've spent so much of my time finding people with whom to disagree, I tend to watch that material and not the material produced by the people that I agree with so much. So it's, I don't know what he said, so I can't really comment on it myself. Yeah,
I have to say, look, I do sub to Elliot's, and I do sub to a number of others, but I don't actually check all their material because I don't have enough time as well. And at most times, I would probably spend more things like some of the websites that are actually, the really sciencey sort of stuff. That's what I spend most of my time, archaeology and other things like that. I don't actually, I mean, occasionally if I want a bit of a laugh, I'll go to, things like Daphne's, and have a bit of a laugh when she goes crazy on some of the vegans and stuff like that. But, there's just so many hours in the day, you can't cover everybody and everything and all that. I mean, obviously in a carnivore diet, you would need much less, thiamine, because thiamine, basically you need double the thiamine on a plant-based diet. It's just, for glucose metabolism is a bigger requirement. But if you've got basically a mitochondrial dysfunction and you're in a state of glycolysis and you've got a whole lot of other things, you may need a higher dose under certain circumstances. So it depends on, because I know that the sort of stuff that Elliot gets into is therapeutic types. He's not talking about basically the run-of-the-mill, the general population. Even people on a SAD diet probably don't need as high doses as that. So I think it needs to be kept in mind that it is a therapeutic dose. It's it's a bit like ketogenic diets, therapeutic versions and non-therapeutic versions. They are different and they have a different utility. So we need to basically, sometimes we get caught up in, and we don't differentiate the two. So, but look, I can't comment on any of his recent videos because I haven't seen them. So like you, but all I can say is if you're on a standard carnivore diet, you don't have to worry. If you want to get more thiamine, and also just, eat foods that are higher in thiamine. I mean, pork is one of the best out of all the actual animal foods. It's the highest. So you can have one big serving and you'll get all your RDA, which is double what you really need on a carnivore diet anyway. So it's pretty much a non-issue unless you've got an underlying deficiency of some sort or some health reason to basically require it. So that's pretty much my take on it.
Yep, like it. We'll go with that.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Luca. Exactly. It pretty much covers it all. But one proviso: selenide chelates poorly, which basically means if you have a lot of carbohydrates, glycating factors in the bloodstream, you can actually break the bonds between the selenide and the mercury. So you want to be on a low inflammatory diet if you're using, selenium as a method, and don't go too high on the doses either. So you be very careful on that. But even there, I've got, if you check my video, I've sort of got these big question marks about the RDIs, even on that, because I've seen higher doses for prolonged periods and no toxicity. So I think there may be specific types when you're eating certain types of food or in relation to a number of things that it could be different. So there's a lot of things we got question marks on, but I wouldn't take the risks. That's the only thing, the only proviso. Okay. So what did I mention? Hello, Harry. You recently mentioned a preference for the form of D3, oil-based. Can you provide a brand? The only thing that it was only for, there's the Jarrow one, I believe, that actually uses olive oil. There's a couple of that use medium chain triglycerides, but I tend to try and get out in the sun. So this is just an unusual situation. I can't get to the tropics this year. So I do not supplement in winter at all with D3. I've never supplemented. I've just basically supplemented this year, and in particular because respiratory infections require at least a minimum, from what the studies show us, 4,000 IUs to basically be protective. That's the only reason. If I go out in the sun, and I usually check on the BOM, which is the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, and they usually have what the actual UV at specific hours is, and I calculate from that and work out, am I getting enough? Do I need supplementation today? No, I don't. So I don't take any supplement. But if it's basically I have a spell of a couple of days where it's really bad, I will, and it's usually a good quality one that doesn't have any issues related to it. It's sort of a halfway house. It's not a perfect situation, but it's something that I do because to be protective. I've got a father that's in his 80s, and at the same time, I want to basically keep him safe, and I have him on the same sort of vitamins as well to basically so he can basically protect them as well. There are other options. I mean, there's like Rosetta, which is the cod liver oil, which is another option that I've used in the past, and that's one of the best because in terms of it's pretty much it doesn't have the aldehyde or the rancidity issues of the other sort of stuff. Yes, it's a bit more pricey. I've actually shown it on one of my other live streams in the past, so you can go and check that out. Give you some reason to binge and watch and get that information. But I don't regularly sort of the only thing that I've ever really recommended in terms of brands quite clearly has been a low dose vitamin E from Jarrow, which is in the low doses, and it's not going to cause any imbalances. And at the same time, it's something you would take to basically deal with stored PUFA that's come from veg seed oils, and it usually is a protocol of 4 to 6 years, depending on what your prior consumption has been. So you guys are well aware of that, and so that's my sort of take in that regard. I believe that you should only address deficiencies with supplements, and supplements they're not bound to in the same way that vitamins and minerals are bound in flesh of animals. It's a different binding, it's our body has been designed to break it down in a specific way and utilize it, where when you've got these sort of vitamins and minerals, a lot, especially the low quality stuff, a lot of it just goes right through. It doesn't even get into the system. It's sort of a hit and miss. That's why they produce it in such high doses. And some of it actually has even some potentially, there's some studies that actually show some level of problems to the gut in rats. Now, we don't have any studies in humans, so let me make that quite clear, and we don't know what it's causing to humans. But do you want to be taking the risk over multiple decades? I wouldn't be taking those risks if I was you guys. But, that's up to you guys. Now let's move on. Yes, yes. I live on beer. Where I live is just water to the rest of the world. Yes. A lot of us can relate to that. Actually, what do you like when it comes to spirits? I don't mind some spirits now and then.
I don't mind a spirit. I enjoy a gin. I enjoy a whiskey. The problem is it doesn't enjoy me, and I have mistitrated fairly often. When I go to spirits, I tend to mistitrate. I tend to drink too much.
Yeah.
And that actually turns me into a very, very unpleasant person. And I don't want to be that person, and nobody wants to be around that person. So it's just drink beer or cider. And, if you're going to.
Yeah, look, exactly. Yeah.
So leave the beer out for me, I think, pretty much because gluten intolerance and shit. So it's down to a cider. And this one's like 4.5% that I generally tend to enjoy. Which is, the same sort of alcohol level you'd get in a standard beer down here anywhere in New Zealand or Australia. So in terms of the alcohol intake, it's about the same as beer, but it doesn't have the effect that beer has in terms of the gluten thing. So cider it is. I mean meat juice.
Yes. It's no different than vitamin C. You sort of need a certain amount. You don't need too much.
Hey, T2, that sounds like a very, very familiar question. That was the exact same question T2 asked this morning on Pim's stream.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh,
he got the answer from Pim then. But let's see what Harry says.
Well, my sort of view is that when it comes to topofferol, stick to the low doses. That I don't believe in high doses. There's only so much that can be incorporated in the tissue of your body. And I think basically these things need to be to a certain level within the tissue. They act for the lipids as an electron donor. And then after that, you do not want to have too many around circulating, being affected by other oxidants in the system. And so that's my sort of view. That's why I recommend low doses, because if you're on a low inflammatory diet, they will get refreshed by glutathione on some of the others. And alipoic acid is a master sort of electron donor to all these sort of things. But you don't want too many of these. You want the right proportionality for their functions to basically maintain good membrane integrity. So that's
and
sort of
ground yourself. Ground yourself often. Ground yourself as often as you can.
Yes,
be grounded.
Yes. Get those negative ions in and basically look after your body. Yes, it's. I mean, your mitochondria need them. It's a not energy source that we don't tap into. The sun is another energy source that we don't tap into. Those are things. So we need to basically have less stickiness. You don't want to be sticky.
Well, depends,
except in some circumstances.
Exactly. Depends very much, doesn't it?
It does. We're talking about cellular stickiness here, mate.
Yeah. T2 says it's good to get opinions. Yeah, I agree. I was just teasing you, son. Don't worry about it. I was just teasing you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, look, there's always, even though we will say something similar, we'll give a similar answer, in many cases, we will come from a slightly different angle because of slightly different ways that we've actually understood it or learnt it, or the knowledge that we've got. So you can get a more a more deeper understanding from asking a similar question from other people. So it's there's nothing wrong with it. In that regard. Maybe they test. Maybe these two T1 and T2 are just trying to test me. Put me under the pressure.
Yeah. Fuckers.
That's it. Oops! I've just lost my bloody spot.
Fuck, that's annoying. How
yeah, I know. It just pisses me off.
It pisses you off. It pisses me off. It pisses Pim off. It pisses off everybody I've ever spoken to about StreamYard. For those that still don't know what we're talking about, on StreamYard, you've got a control panel that has all the comments in order, just like your YouTube chat feed, although it's several minutes behind. and that's fine. And you're trying to go through them in order and deal with things in order, and then new comments are dumped through every few minutes in batches, and the fucking StreamYard chat control automatically directs itself to the new stuff, and you lose your place, and you have to scroll all the way back and find it. Fucking knock it off, you StreamYard cunts. Get it together. Sort it out.
And that's what it looks like on what I'm looking at on my screen. Yeah. I've got the YouTube part here, so I can sort of notice things.
I'm glad you've got that one open so you can see what's going on.
Yeah.
I wonder who you learned that one from, Harry.
Yeah, you. Sort of detaching the actual panel, and then there's this. But the problem is when you stuff feed into the actual StreamYard thing, it just bounces, and you lose the spot. And that is really damn annoying.
Yep. Right. With my apologies, I have to fly. The time has elapsed that I'm allowed. Yep. I have to go and take Pim to lunch. Thanks all for your support ongoingly. Don't forget to keep an ear to the ground. I will be around. It just won't be very much on YouTube. So we'll catch you later, boys and girls.
Thanks, mate, for appearing. See you, mate.
Right, see ya.
Regards to Pim.
Of course. See ya.
See you, mate. Well, back to me. We're still waiting on Jared. He hasn't appeared. He's probably still doing the milk run. Wouldn't be surprised. Thoughts on magnesium supplements. When I stop them, I get facial twitching. Not sure why. You probably have some. You may be having an electrolyte imbalance. What are you eating? What other things are you doing? So it could be a different combination. Look, when it comes to the electrolytes, if you're let's say you're transitioning to sorting out your electrolytes, you've got all these pumps, like for instance, the potassium sodium pump. So there is at the cell membrane, you basically have this gradient potential. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that you need that you've got fluids pushing on one side and fluids pushing on the other side. And so these are managed by potassium and sodium. So if you've got too much of one or the other, there's going to be spillage in one direction or another. So the whole thing is you're sort of trying to equalize that. The nice thing about sodium, sodium is irrelevant because you can have it quite high. So if you've basically, let's say, this is not, what exactly is in there, but let's say you've got 1 unit here. You need something similar of levels to basically counterbalance the other. So if you've got too little, you'll be dumping out and you're losing. So people that are very low sodium, they will dump out potassium. They can't retain potassium. Okay? So the potassium will come down to the new homeostasis. So you're always maintaining a certain level of homeostasis between intra and extracellular fluids. So inside and outside. And that's how the system works. So if you basically need things like magnesium and potassium inside the cell, more of it, and you need basically calcium and sodium outside the cell mainly. So you need these to basically, because what's in the seawater, there's a lot of calcium and a lot of sodium. Where did we originate? All life in seawater. So these relationships have existed for a very long time. So the problem is when we're eating inappropriate, if you're basically got low insulin, you could be on a low carbohydrate diet and still have some level of insulin resistance. So you don't need as much sodium. But then, other people can be in a state of very low insulin, and because people do respond differently, and dumping electrolytes out like there's no tomorrow. And then you will dump out both magnesium and potassium, and you will get all these twitches and all these sort of things. So you may be a good dumper, which may mean when you may need to basically supplement with magnesium and potassium, get your levels up to a certain level and keep your sodium levels up to hold those, those minerals in, and basically maintain that homeostasis. because that's what you need to do. And once you've done that, then you've sorted out. And as long as you keep on salting, you'll maintain that balance, that gradient potential. And that's the whole thing. So that's what you need to really do. I mean, I've had in the past where I've, done long fasts and I haven't had enough sodium and I've dumped too much and I've just sort of felt leg cramps and stuff like that. And I basically went and got myself cream of tartar, which is a very high, it's a sort of an agent that is used in baking and whatever else, but it's very high in potassium. So I've used that and I've worked out the balance. So I didn't do anything crazy in that regard. Worked out how to get the levels that I need, and basically put those in, put the magnesium in and all that, and put enough sodium, and then just basically brought back homeostasis within my system, and then just went back to just normally eating whatever I get from the food and having a bit extra sodium to basically keep it all in. Simple. It's not complicated. The problem is when you start playing around and, doing all these experiments and all that, you can be all over the place, So you need to sort out that relationship between the electrolytes. Anyway, I hope that sort of explains things. Depends what you're doing. If you're doing intensive exercise and stuff like that, some of these, aminos can be useful. So it really depends on your circumstances. If you're just a regular guy or girl and you're not, really pushing your body much and you're getting enough nutrition, probably a waste of money. But if you need that extra oomph, yep, so it depends on your circumstances. Very well, T2. Very well. By the years. You don't have any years. Are you lying to us? Yes. Might obviously thought, haha. When I have been out on ambulance duty, I've been around many drunk people to relate to that. You would be. Yes, quite dangerous as well. Yes. The other problem is when you're in a state of drunkenness, you knew what you were doing. Yes. Probably another thing that you drunks out there, just reminding us, don't forget to basically get your B vitamins up, B complex, hydration, some choline to export all that fat out of your fatty liver that you'll be creating, so the supplements for an alcoholic. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's awful, isn't he? God, I should give him a light bulb, a light bulb and nothing else. And you can only do it with your beak. Yes. Need to give him a hard time. Oops. I just lost my spot. I hate it. I hate it. I love StreamYard. No, I don't. Is beer made of hops or grains? Depends. Depends on the beer, in a sense. Yes, and it depends what grains are used as well. The sort of the phytoestrogens that are going to be in there, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, they don't call it a beer gut for nothing. Yes. So, you want a big beer gut? You eat that. You drink that grain-based beer. See, the hoppy is much lower. It's got, bugger all. But the problem is if you want really hoppy beer, you're looking at basically parts of Eastern Europe. I remember years ago, actually the last time that I was in Eastern Europe was 2006, 14 years ago. And I went through quite a few of the pubs and all the actual beers through there are all hoppy and, quite very different compared to the Australian ones and all that. Yes. I had my other Australian mate, Andrew, and he was tracking his suitcase full of beer. You could hear the noise of the beers, literally. Oh, God. Those were the days. Fucking hell, two fucking crazy Australians dragging beer around in Eastern Europe. Fuck me. No, we had a good time. That's the main thing. Hi, Kitty. Good to see you. G'day, mate. And Honest is here as well. Yes, he did. You scared him off. It's your fault, Ian. I'm blaming you. No, you had to go. Take Pim to a nice meal. Yes. It's good that, he's sort of a bit more relaxed and started doing a few of those things that probably are good for him to help him out and all that. So, Oops. Particular problems with wheat, but even look, wheat's very different compared. It's been hybridized, it's been modified, it's got much higher levels of gluten than what it used to be. So, and people are not eating, the sort of rich foods because meats are much higher. So fish and meat is much higher in DAO and also will upregulate DAO. So they will actually, those sort of foods that traditionally people used to eat, they used to eat small amounts of grains, more animal products in the past. And so that is protective to the gut lining. But if you're basically now in a modern sort of Frankenstein type diet, which is 70% grains and carbohydrates and all that, and very little animal product to provide good nutrition, gut permeability goes up. All these gut issues that people are facing, it's all related to that. People drank beer in the past, they didn't have any gut issues. They had good nutrition, which is animal based. But but it's not. It wasn't optimal, definitely not. But so yeah. Look, it's useful in that regard. But we're talking about people with severe issues. I would just stick to a bit of hydration, some choline, and especially the B vitamins. So it's all you need when you have one of those indiscretions. Let's just clarify that point. Not yet. I haven't seen him. I don't know where he is. He hasn't turned up yet. So he's probably hiding somewhere, who knows, so we will see. You could be preparing something. Yes. Gluten isn't a good thing. I mean, there's sort of the old grain of Zea, which is an ancient Greek sort of wheat, which has got 1/10 of the gluten, has got more minerals and has got double the minerals and vitamins of standard wheat. And this is even the standard unprocessed wheat. But it's nowadays, if you go to Greece, you'll find it here and there. It's sort of an artisan type bread, but it's not well known outside Greece. There's a few people that produce it in Germany, and a few places like that where it still exists, especially in rural Germany. Not so much in the cities. But you know, it's unfortunately the modern day stuff definitely is, you know, it's got too many anti-nutrients. It's really bad. Molecular hydrogens? No, I haven't. So is that similar to deuterium depletion? Because the only things that, you know, the way I see it is ridding your body of deuterium, and actually, well, not ridding, but reducing and increasing the sort of the hydrogen ions to support mitochondrial function. So if he's talking about that sort of stuff, yeah. But whether there's a specific supplement, you know, the only thing that I know is to use deuterium depleted water, which can displace or dilute out the deuterium content of the metabolic water as a protocol to reverse severe, mitochondrial dysfunction. But I will be explaining that in a video in later this month or early next month. So that is coming. That definitely is coming, because that's one of the most important ones that I think anyway, about, because really fundamentally what happens over time is we get this general degradation of mitochondrial function, you know, the CD38, all these sort of things that I've been talking about, that basically are eroding our capacity to generate enough energy. You become an old person and you're in a literally wheelchair or whatever, and because of the inappropriate foods we're eating, or the inappropriate things that we're actually in our environment, are damaging a lot of this. And some people are getting brain fog and brain dysfunction from a very early age, and they're getting mitochondrial dysfunction from much earlier than they should be, because of the really bad diets. And I can see in the long run, there'll be far more people that will have mitochondrial disease, and a severe mitochondrial disease. And hopefully they will look at my videos and learn how to reverse it, and restore proper mitochondrial function. So that is coming, and that's sort of important. I don't know whether this sort of supplement is something that is along those lines. I haven't looked into it. It could be, it sort of could be another strategy of displacing deuterium with, so yeah, not sure. I'd have to look into it to find out. There's always all sorts of supplements, but the other thing is you've got to be careful with exactly what are they doing. So I won't endorse anything unless I actually, I know McCullough's pretty ethical. He's not going to put anything really dodgy on the market, but at the same time, when it comes to molecular science and quantum biology, sometimes people can have a different approach. I have a very different approach in the way I believe in dealing at the subatomic level and how to deal with fixing things, and other people have different approaches. So, for me, it's still, I've got a different approach basically. So I don't know how his approach actually works. I have to look into it, and I can comment. Probably ask me next week. I will comment on it once I've sort of looked into it thoroughly and I understand exactly what it's doing. And yeah, so yeah, interesting. If somebody's come up with a new novel product that can do something in helping mitochondrial health, yeah, I would find it interesting. If it's good and it's sound, the science is sound, I'd be recommending it. Somebody's put something good out, why not? If it can help people. Anyway, I think Grandpa Nexie could be trying to help Butter get on. Oh, okay. With new kittens. Yes, could be. You never know. Yeah, good idea. Oops, I lost my spot. I hate it. In ancient Egypt, they used fine sand in wheat to get into the grinder better. Yep, look, yeah, I know. And it did cause a lot of... Actually, they used to put notes up. Like, this is how they used to compete in ancient Egypt. They would actually put signs out on their stores saying, there's more sort of sand in, their competitors' wheat. You should be buying wheat from here because we've got less. Yeah, it was a strange way of actually doing it. But that was the technology at the time. And it did cause a lot of damage, especially if you're eating a diet which is slightly deficient. And this was before refined sugar, we have to remember. So if you look at some of the old mummies, Michael Eads actually did a really good takedown on some of the actual research that had been done in mummies, and actually that had been put into scanners and scanned and x-rayed and all this sort of stuff, and they actually were showing that they did have atheromas. They had basically cardiovascular disease. And also in the texts of the ancient physicians, they actually described a heart attack, sort of the shortness of breath, the pressure on the chest, and all these sort of things that really like you would in a modern textbook. So, it just basically shows that a high carbohydrate diet, even without refined sugar, will eventually cause you these issues. And they had a pretty clean diet because they had some poultry, some fish, and it was a sort of a pescatarian type, vegetarian type style of diet. And still, they had all these health problems, but it was very high in grains, very high in wheat products. The ancient Greeks used to call them artophagos, which means bread eater. Yes. T1. You had to take it to the next level, didn't you? It's a sorry state of affairs, isn't it? Yep. You can't help yourself either, can you? You reckon? God. Those are disturbing images you're putting in my head. It's an enzyme that degrades NAD+. And it actually increases with age. And we know that it basically is involved in a number of processes which have to do with the musculoskeletal. And we know that it basically, if you have very low, if you suppress it, you can actually have musculoskeletal problems. So it's definitely involved as an enzyme in these sort of processes. Now, why why it actually increases over time, we don't know. We know that it basically degrades NAD+, which means it zaps your energy over time. And is it a protective mechanism? Because the general aging of the body, you need to slow down the body so you don't get more damage, potentially, So it may have a protective reason why it increases with age. Yeah, we don't really know. It's a lot of things. It may just be a mechanism of to kill off the body. It may be basically a built-in mechanism. Says you've bred, you've created descendants. Now we're going to snuff you out slowly but surely. So so suppressing and keeping it at youthful levels, and it having a species-appropriate diet. The good nutrition, exercise, and all the other stuff, fasting, mindful thinking and, yoga and stuff like that to have better mindset and all that, to reduce stress levels and stuff like that. If you do all these sort of things in combination, you probably will end up with longer life and better, upregulation of sirtuins and slowing down the aging process. So in that sort of combination. But the full understanding of CD38 we don't have yet. It's just we don't. I would not suppress it, and there are idiots out there that are basically looking at how can we, create some sort of pharmaceutical. They're always trying to make something that literally interferes with normal physiology, like metformin, like this or that or whatever. So that's why I have a problem with these people. Where niacin, on the other hand, low dose niacin, you don't need really high doses, just tempers down the CD38 and increases NAD+. So it improves your energy production, your redox potential, your ability to detox, to repair and do other things in a more managed and more youthful way rather than anything else. So yeah, my sort of view is to basically keep within certain boundaries. I know a lot of people always try to push those sort of, and tend to, get into, it can be dangerous, when you do things like that, I think. Yep. And exactly, yep. So I'm still trying to understand more about and looking and trying to find new research on CD38. There's not a lot of stuff out there, unfortunately, and most of it is, you can actually see that the actual academics doing the research, they've got no idea. They're guessing. And I don't like guesses because that doesn't tell me much. So, I'm sort of, still in a halfway house when it comes to that sort of stuff. Now, where was I? I lost my spot. I hate it. Come back. Okay. Yeah, I'll still have to check him out and find out. Yeah, they sound like one. Anyway, we used to call them bread eaters, so artophagos, so that was their nickname. See, ancient Greece, because Greece is 85% mountainous, we don't have much grain production. It's really after the Second World War that a lot of grains were imported from other countries like the US, so traditional Greek diet is more, some seasonal fruit, a lot of olives, not a lot of olive oil, because at the time, olive oil was used as for lighting purposes and other things, because this is before electrification. Massive electrification happened after the Second World War. My father was involved because he was a Boilermaker welder. He was involved in some of the biggest hydroelectric dams that were being built on the west coast of Greece. So this is before he came to Australia as a youngster. He'd come out of the army after 3 years in the army. Then he was sergeant major when he left the army. He had an opportunity to become a non-commissioned officer, but he didn't. He declined it. And then after that, he sort of got into other industries. Then he moved to Athens and got into shipbuilding industry. So, our sort of world at the time, the world that my father lived in, you had very little wheat products because there was not a lot of roads to move a lot of commodities around. So you grew your stuff locally, what you had, and it was very much a heavy meat, dairy based type, economy. So you went to the islands, it was just basically goats and sheep on the islands. They're all rocky islands. You can't, this is before tourism or anything. So you basically just, and you'd have a small little veggie garden, which was seasonal, and some fruits, which were seasonal. But the majority of the year, you basically were eating animal-based products, which were dairy and, just meats and organ meats, a lot of organ meats, I remember in the 80s. So that's why when I hear people telling me about Greece, and that's in the modern world where they didn't have any of the supermarkets, any of this sort of stuff, it was just what they had. I mean, just look at in the Iliad, and the Homeric epics. What were they? What was he? He was a king of herding. He had goats and sheep on his the big amounts. And what was the majority of the foods? It was dairy-based cheeses and stuff like that and meats that were cooked and stuff like that. These are the things that are actually in these texts. It doesn't surprise me. I did the isotope analysis on the ancient Greeks, which is on one of my videos that actually looks at the N15, and it's very high. It's all animals, terrestrial-based animals, four-legged animals that they consumed, and a bit of fish, the small fish, which is coastal, but a small amount of that. But the majority of their diet came from landed animals, whether it was the dairy component or the actual flesh of those animals. And so when I hear this sort of bullshit, this Mediterranean diet bullshit and all that, I never basically saw it. I was in Greece in the 70s and 80s as a youngster. I know what they ate. And it was all basically dairy, meat-based. We loved dairy and meat, And at most, you'd get a loaf of bread. This was in the 80s, obviously, because after the Second World War, a lot of grains came in, as I said. And in the morning, I'd get a hot sourdough piece of bread. I'd go and get all my yogurts, and it was all lamb's yogurt. None of this cow yogurt or that. It's just lamb, really thick. It's really, you actually just eat it with a fork. You can actually use a knife and fork and cut it up in pieces because it's that thick, the yogurt. It's like nearly cheesy type, completely different from what people think. That's why the ancient Greeks were great warriors. They were on an animal-based diet. That's why they could kick ass anywhere in the known world. I mean, I'll just give you an example. The last fight with the Persians in Plataea, which is northwest of Athens, this was the last fight. There were both Athenians there with their allies, plus the Spartans, and they were slightly outnumbered by the Persians. The Spartans got pissed off because they wanted to run the leadership. They wanted to get the glory, and the Athenians wouldn't allow them, and they were slightly more numerous. And so basically the Spartans told them to take a hike, and they left the battlefield. And it was the Athenians, even though they were now even more outnumbered than before, that basically just annihilated. And the Persians never came back. And from that victory came the Idalian League and the Athenian Empire. So that's what you get when you eat. You really create strong societies that are powerful. Not this soft cock crap. Snowflake shit of the modern world. So, which is all basically grain. That's what the Egyptians were and all that. That's why even the Hittites, who were closely related to the Greeks, which were on an animal-based diet, literally when they were in that region before they had their own little civil war and pulled themselves apart. Very typical, like the Greeks. We love our civil wars. But, they literally kicked the Egyptians multiple times in the teeth, So, yes, grains do not make you strong. They definitely will make you a weakling. So what's this? This again about the H2. Yeah, look, I don't know enough about what his actual supplement is. Okay, so it's basically a bit like deuterium depleted water. So rather than actually depleting the deuterium content of water and then selling that water like they do out of Hungary, so it's basically a product that just basically puts hydrogen in and displaces and increases the hydrogen content and reduces in percentage terms, the deuterium content of that water, I suspect is. Okay, so it's not okay, so it's something completely different. Okay. Don't know. Definitely not. Okay. Most of the research from Japan, yeah, they're always coming up with something, but they came up with high fructose corn syrup and they came up with a whole lot of other things. So I would have to check to see, Chris, what that actual isotope of hydrogen is, how it's bound, its electrical state and stuff like that, and how it would interact with our cells, because that's really important, because you can make things and they can maybe interact in ways that they shouldn't. So, that's why I'm wary unless I've really looked into it, but I haven't heard of it. Pretty much. Yes, must have been sleeping under a rock when all this research happened. Okay, yeah, I'll have to look into it and find out and let you guys know what I think about it. Let's try and get a. T1, can you keep T2 under control? Well, both of you keep yourselves under control. Even Daniel's jumping into the fray. Daniel, I wouldn't get between these two. You'll have a hilarious time, mate. Good. Anyway, we've had a few stories. Grains and super soy. Yes. It's just too much soy now in so much products. It's the level of estrogenic products nowadays is just ridiculous. You've got to be very careful with reading labels. We've all become label readers. And even with supplements, a lot of the supplements have got so much estrogenic shit in there because it's all cheap. So you've got to keep an eye on that sort of stuff, guys. Try and look for stuff that doesn't have any fillers. If you're going to use it, stuff like that, look for like gelatin or bovine gelatin, things like sort of distilled water and stuff like that. And, to be in combined with things that are not going to be really problematic to your bodies. So, did you? Yeah. My feathers don't ruffle that easy. Oops. Anyway, do we have any other questions beyond the feathers? The feather parade. Yeah, they are, Shell. They definitely are. I'm sort of upgrading myself to the next feral level. You guys like me a bit feralish. Be honest. I know you do. Yeah, I do. Even my mate said, for fuck's sake, do you go out like that in public? Aren't you going to, your age, aren't you? Yeah, your age, aren't you basically going to get yourself a haircut? Yes. I need to sort something out. It will happen next week. Get it done. Okay, I'm convinced. I accept. I probably missed some questions with this damn StreamYard jumping around. So if you want to repeat, if I've missed any questions, just ask again, please, because it's a bit of a problematic. No, that still hasn't come up, Sam. It drives me up the wall. It will eventually come up and it'll jump and all that. So anyway, any reason, it just came up, any reason or mechanism why supposedly pasteurized crap fortified supermarket non-raw could be toxic? I wouldn't say it's toxic. No. What it is nutrient deficient. Because when you actually pasteurize, you're basically... You're losing all the enzymes. So if you've only got one of the alleles and you don't have both lactose persistent genes, just one of them, then the extra enzymes that you would get from raw milk means you'd be fine. But if you don't get those extra enzymes, well, you may, the way, I'm lactose persistent, so I don't really know. But from what people describe, they get severe bloating, they get severe irritation, they get their... I know from a friend of mine whose daughter is lactose intolerant, and what they pretty much know, because she starts farting, her stomach starts going, sort of if there's... it sort of gets disturbing sort of noises, and then basically she's heading for the toilet. So basically, that's how it's been described to me in the plain sort of thing. But look, if you don't have a lactose intolerant issue or whatever, then it's not an issue. But the pasteurization will eliminate things like lactoferrin, which is really good for the immune system, and a whole lot of other, B vitamins are reduced substantially. So you get this massive reduction in all sorts of things, the sort of quality of the actual product. So you end up with a food that's not completely devoid, but it's suboptimal, substandard in terms of micronutrients. And you're basically consuming more what you would call, like with all processed foods, empty calories. So, but it's not completely empty calories, but you're actually getting the protein, the fat, and some of the sugars from the milk, but you're getting suboptimal levels of the vitamins and minerals, the enzymes, and some of the other elements in there that are very protective and helpful to the immune system. Like, you'll lose all the proteolytic enzymes in most cases. There may be a few that may survive pasteurization, but it's pretty much you'll lose the majority of them. And these enzymes have a whole lot of benefits in the body, of repairing the body, of doing a lot of things which are beneficial, because our ability to transcript a lot of these proteolytic enzymes declines with age. And so you lose that sort of stuff. So it's the quality. It's not that it's toxic, it's the quality that you're actually getting that's diminished quite a bit. So that's the sort of difference between a raw milk and a pasteurized milk. Obviously, if you put fortified stuff in as well, the quality of those, or what is being fortified, what you're putting back in after the pasteurization, some companies do, that can be questionable. That could be a problem. So if it's just a product, most companies, they don't do with that unless they're forced by law. Most companies, like in the US, there's a bit of fortification that happens with milk and a whole lot of other products. You don't get it in most other countries that use pasteurization. So yeah, so it's probably less of an issue. Depends on the country as well, how much worse it could be in that regard. Well, thanks, Harry. I'm off for some sleep. Yep, fair enough. Thanks, Bo, for being here. Take care, and hope to see you next week. Yes, I've got concerns with you. I can't remember how, but I've read somewhere that it's actually toxic as to maybe just oxidation causing. You're talking about the homogenization that can actually damage both the lipids and the proteins. So yeah, that can be an issue. Homogenization, but even there we don't have good research, because the stomach actually denatures and breaks down those fats to their fatty acids and to their amino acids. So is it a problem really? Probably not. It's probably overrated in terms of the problems. And in terms of the Bradford-Hill criteria, which is the gold standard, the way you assess research, in terms of the Bradford-Hill criteria, if you increase something which is dose dependent, you should get worse outcomes. So the more you consume something which has a problem or toxicity or whatever, you should get sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker in that regard. But we don't see that. So it fails, let alone we can look at ancestral populations like the Maasai that consume on average 4.5 litres of milk a day. So, it's just a non-issue. But when it comes to, there is no toxin in milk. It's just basically when you pasteurize, you take things out, you remove things, you lose nutrition, micronutrition, the micronutrients, and some other beneficial enzymes and stuff like that. That's all you're doing. You're losing. So you're degrading the quality of the food. You're not making it toxic. It's a veg tart argument. Oh, it's toxic, but milk is rape or whatever else, and it's toxic. Yeah, well, tell that to the Maasai. So there's no studies anywhere. There's not one study anywhere that can actually show any of that sort of stuff. A lot of the stuff that actually is out there in epidemiological stuff, when you do clinical research, it never pans out, which quite clearly shows that it's just food frequency questionnaires and just people writing down whatever they can remember, and people doing some stupid statistics with it, which is what they do. It's all about maintaining tenure and nothing else. It's crap. So don't concern yourself. So if you're hungry and you need more nutrition, even pasteurized milk is fine as long as you've got the lactose persistent genes. But just remember, you're not going to get the same level of quality. I buy raw milk and for the higher level of nutrition. So, but that's me. But then there are issues of affordability and all sorts of issues that come into play. And it's not me to tell people how to, manage their food budget. I just hope that they try to prioritize more nutrient dense foods with their food budget, like organ meats so you could have, some pasteurized milk because, you can't get access to raw milk, and then combine that with some organ meats and stuff like that in your diet throughout the week to get back quite a few of those things that you would have lost in comparison if you were consuming raw milk. So people need to make those choices themselves, how they go about it, and don't get too wound up. Raw milk, just raw milk, not pasteurized. So if you can get access to raw milk, good for you. I can. I know Jared can, but I don't know he's chasing his pussy at the moment, so he's got issues. Meow, issues. He's in a mess of a buttery mess. Nah, not really an issue. It's overrated. I actually say, show me one clinical study that actually shows an issue. The body actually has buffering systems, has buffering systems when it comes. It's called your lungs and your kidneys, and it buffers and regulates all this sort of stuff, So it's a non-issue. Now, casein can be to some people who have got sensitivity, but not to everyone. Yep. Casein will not become more inflammatory because of pasteurization. You can have raw milk, and if you're sensitive to casein, you can basically, so it's pasteurization. All it does is heats up the milk, and you lose a lot of the micro, not macro, micronutrition. So it becomes less optimal as a food, or, it's like basically the way we take wheat and we process it to a powder, and you lose most of the vitamins and minerals out of the wheat product. But that's probably not the best example, because wheat has also a lot of anti-nutrients. So, but you know what I'm getting at. When you process something, you will lose micronutrition. This is what we're suffering. We now get less micronutrients, less B vitamins, minerals, and fat-soluble vitamins in our diet because we're eating inappropriate, highly processed foods. That's the problem. And you can't get that stuff back with vitamins or minerals because they're not bound in the proper way, and a lot of it gets excreted out of your urine or out of your feces, and that's the problem. So supplementing your way, vegans try to do it. Look at vegans. They're constantly supplementing this, that, and all that, but they're still anemic. They've still got all these problems. Why? Because supplements are poorly absorbed. And if you want really highly absorbed supplements, you have to get basically highly specifically with specific type of chelations that can or liposomal, so they can actually pass the gut barrier and get into the system. And they are all expensive type supplements. And I go, why are you spending so much money? Yes, you need to fix a deficiency, fine, for a certain period of time, or your body is not absorbing normal food in the proper way. Yes, you may need that as a short-term solution to correct something. But, there's so much animal organ meats out there that is cheap. It's fucking cheap. Just get stuck into that sort of stuff, and you'll have all the micronutrients you bloody need. So there's no excuse. So basically, avoid the kibble and the processed stuff and go for the organ meats. Yes, you did. You did. You'll have to wait until the end and then rewind back. Yes. He was talking about the witch. What else? And a few other things. I'm blown away by your knowledge. Oh, well, thank you. That's all I can say. I have a quirky way of viewing the world, let's put it that way. When it comes to, I sort of try and actually look at, a lot of people, they will read something and all that, and they actually view the world in a very reductionist way because they've been taught to think like that. I've sort of, from my young age, when I was heavily into philosophy at the age of between 15 and 18 and a lot of other things, I learned to view the world in a more holistic way. So when I look at things, I say, well, how does that interact with that? So I'm constantly looking at the relationships between one factor and multiple other factors. So, it's easy to basically just memorize something and regurgitate it out like everybody else does. I don't do that. I'm more interested in, if I use this at that dose, how's it going to affect this? Because there are substances, I'll give you an example. There are things that you can actually take that can actually will downregulate, as an example, CD38. But then if you take certain other nutraceuticals that have other effects that can be positive, they can also have a negative effect on that other thing. So they can actually, can be deleterious to another sort of pathway. So just pumping up the levels of everything to a certain level can basically just neutralize and cancel everything out. So you really have to know how one is interacting with the other and stuff like that. And so I sort of go down burrow down these sort of rabbit holes as far as I can go to try and work out what the hell is happening, or why it's happening, or why is it, why these differences. And sort of I usually, in the way I described it in the past, I usually ended up in the hell of the quantum world in terms of quantum biology. And but it really changed the way I view things, so and understand things in a very different way. So I sort of pull a lot of elements together. It's the way I've always thought. It works for me, so I'm glad that it's a benefit for you guys. But it's the sort of the way I sort of think anyway. Yeah. Some of my friends call me eccentric. Maybe I am. Don't know. It's for you guys to work that out and judge for yourselves. I love the backpack. Where can I get one, Luke? I'll probably need something like that. Nice one, mate. Nice one. Appreciate it. Back to the fun. Good on you, mate. Yeah, look, I when I prefer cider as well. So yeah. Hopefully they are. Look, they're really not. They're really good people, I sort of occasionally have a bit of a chat with Bart on Skype. So how is deuterium in milk? It's a mixed bag. When it comes to the actual level can vary throughout the year. So if it's in calving season, the deuterium level goes up because it's a growth factor. But it doesn't go up to very high levels. We're talking about now, I'll give you an example, butter. Butter is about 124, I think it is, or 25, 24, can't remember. Anyway, 120 in the mid 20s, 120 mid something. And the sweet spot that you want to be in is between 100 and 130. So olive oil is 130. Your body does deplete to some extent. It will reduce. It goes through the whole reason of urination is basically to deplete deuterium out. That's why when you're on a carbohydrate diet, you urinate more and you're thirstier than what you are on a low carb diet. Unless you're basically, got low insulin and you're water dumping in the early stages. That's a different thing altogether. We're talking about just normal physiological sort of issues. That's why when somebody actually tells me, they're on a low carb diet, they don't have a lot of energy, and they are actually dumping a lot of water, and they've basically very thirsty, and they've got electrolyte imbalance and stuff like that. I usually say, well, you've probably got a mitochondrial issue, because you're probably more of your mitochondria are probably using not much of the Krebs cycle and not much of lipolysis, or the production of energy from the electron chain, and you've probably got suboptimal and far more glycolysis happening. And you could tell that because their level, and it's usually ex-vegans that have got more damaged mitochondria that basically become carnies, and they move to a carnivore diet. They go, well, my blood sugar's going up on a carnivore diet. And they go, well, it's because basically you've got suboptimal mitochondria and you need to fix them, and you may still have too much deuterium in your system, and you may have too much damage in there. You may not be getting enough sleep and all that, you're maybe suboptimal melatonin to repair those folds that you see on mitochondria. Those folds, that's where melatonin is produced. So don't listen to people that say, oh, it's the pineal gland. Yes, the pineal gland has got mitochondria that have got more dense mitochondria and more folds in them, and that extra folds will generate more melatonin. And you need that because there is so much reactivity in the brain, because it's such an energy intensive organ that you need. That's why the heart itself has a lot of mitochondria. It's dense, and it's got more melatonin it produces. Same thing. That's what is the repair mechanism and the master antioxidant within the mitochondria. That is why if you're not getting enough sleep and you're not blue blocking at night, like I will be in tonight's episode of the Eurasia live stream, you'll see me with my blue blocky glasses on. If you're not doing that, then you're causing yourself more and more mitochondrial damage and aging yourself and slowing yourself down. Anyway, too much. Went on another tangent. Sorry. So yeah, it varies seasonally, whether it's calving and all that, but it's always going to be lower than things like bread, refined sugars, which is 150 odd, between 144 to 155 parts per million. Now, water is 155 parts per million as well. So when people tell you should be hydrating with a lot of water, what they're basically telling you should be poisoning yourself with as much water as possible. Now, we still need some level of hydration, and we still need to do a whole lot of things to deplete, but we should try and get hydration from food. And if you're basically consuming more fat, you will be getting 1.1 mils for 1 gram. So you're getting 10% more water, which is depleted deuterium from fat. This is why the camel has a long life and doesn't show any aging. Why? Because it's a depleting deuterium machine. Yes, that little camel. You can get from vegetation. Vegetation is low in deuterium. So the green stuff and all that. Yes, I know it's full of oxalates and all sorts of other shit, but there are some plant things like cactus and stuff like that. You can get fluids out of that, like a lot of this tribal people do, and put the water into an ostrich egg, and so they've got hydration, which is depleted deuterium water, basically. And the other thing is you can go to higher elevations and get water from those sort of areas, which will be lower in deuterium as well, because of the fractionation of water, as it's called, and the high UV that depletes deuterium. You can go to the tropics and deplete deuterium because you're closer to the equator. More UV, lower deuterium. Another reason why eating fruit in the tropics is probably going to be less deleterious. The further away from the equator you move, the less sugar you want. When you're actually in the Arctic sort of situation, you need to be on an all-fat diet. You need to get your hydration from fat and nothing else. And at the same time, you're not sweating as much. So you're not sweating as much, so you don't need as much water. And generally speaking, your body, I mean, I go to the toilet probably 2-3 times a day, maybe 4 sometimes if I've had extra coffee or whatever. But generally speaking, I can go to only 2, So my anti-diuretic hormones have been upregulated, so I don't actually. And as long as I'm not eating, I notice that I will go more often to the toilet when I actually have more carbs, because carbs are depleting of, for instance, when you have 1 gram of carbs, you get 0.44 grams of metabolic water. That means carbohydrate sugar will dehydrate you, not hydrate you, dehydrate you. So you go from 1 to 0.44. When you have fat, you go from 1 to 1.1. Substantial difference between the 2 in that regard. So, I still have, because I actually said, okay, I had 2 glasses of milk. That's half a litre. Then I had about, 2 coffees. And those 2 coffees, because they're in the 500, that's a litre, because they're in the 500 type, mugs. So that's a litre, so 1.5 litres of fluids. And then basically fluids from the meat and stuff like that. There's probably about a glass or in that, and just water, just water, without the milk and coffee and all that. I'd probably have 2 or 3 glasses. So, I'm already just slightly over, 2 litres or whatever. So it's not as if I'm not getting enough hydration or whatever, but I'm getting sufficient fat to balance the deuterium sort of combinations in that regard. So, yeah, I know, long-winded, you know me. Couldn't help myself. The word is eccentric. It's called a bird. It's called T2. Yes, you're my favorite mascot. That T1 really gives you a hard time. Damn evil T1. We're for the windering machines in Germany for raw milk, but it's pretty scary. Okay. Yeah, look, don't know enough what's happening over there to provide a good comment. I don't know enough about chlorophyll, to be honest. I know that it does have a number of minerals, including magnesium. That it's, so you could say that it has chelated those minerals. I don't know what the bound. See, everything that gets chelated, it's like the selenide that I said earlier. Its chelation is much weaker. So it can be, if you've got too many advanced glycation end products, too much oxidation in the body, you can actually break the bond. So when people say, oh, something's chelated, I always say, so what's the strength of that chelation? I haven't looked into the research. So that's what I mean. I go down the rabbit hole even further than they just go, oh, it's chelated. And What does that mean? How's it chelated? How's it interacting? What is it? What it's basically electrical state within that binding, and how strong is that? Is it bound to the chlorophyll? And how's it interacting with other things? So, because I'm not interested in chlorophyll and all these sort of vegan sort of products because they can't eat real food, it's not something that I've really looked into in any depth in that regard. And I probably won't because it doesn't interest me. Simple as that. If you eat organ meats, you will get all the nutrition you need. You don't need this sort of plant-based shit, as far as I'm concerned. But that's your choice. If you wanna consume some of that stuff, that's fine. I do know that it has chelating properties as for heavy metals and all that, but it also can chelate, your regular minerals and all that. So if you're going to use it as a protocol, I would use selenium for mercury and cadmium. And if I'm going to use this I would actually use it on an empty stomach, separated by quite a few hours between food. So you basically can get the effect where it can chelate any heavy metals that are in the bloodstream, or that are basically being detoxed by the liver and coming through the bile. It's somehow being bound, and by combining that and sort of taking it out in the feces. Yep. But as I said, I don't know enough about chlorophyll to basically know what its chelating properties are and how effective it is in that regard. Usually your body will detox over time because your liver's doing that sort of stuff. So, but I've heard that there are good results from chlorophyll chelation of heavy metals, but that I haven't researched into chlorophyll sufficiently to basically say yes. As far as mercury goes, I sort of focus more on foods and stuff like that, and the food side of things. Occasionally people have asked me about toxins, like being exposed to heavy metals and chemicals and stuff like that. And I've said to them basically to use selenium, and but not in high doses. You don't want to go over 500 micrograms in your whole food and all that. Keep it much lower. So, and keep a non-inflammatory diet, and potentially even use things like chlorophyll and all that in that regard. But the exact quantities and stuff like that, there are probably other people that have done the research work. Go to them, do chlorophyll chelation and see what people have said. There are a whole lot of different protocols out there when it comes to chelation. The majority of people, if they've got a clean diet and all that, they're not going to have any issues. They don't really have to worry in that regard. So I would, be very careful. Yes. Yep. I'd be very careful, how you apply these sort of things, because I've known people using chlorophyll and potentially causing themselves some deficiencies in certain minerals. So you got to be very careful how you use these things. Do you have an actual reason to be using this sort of stuff? Have you checked yourself out for heavy metals or stuff like that? What is your status? So I don't recommend things that people should take unless they have an underlying real reason to do that, and they've actually tested themselves, because they do come with a lot of risks. Shit. Really? How much are you consuming every day? You're not buying it by the truckloads, are you? Fuck me. That's the problem. You've got these bloody carny hoarders that basically are pushing up the prices. You damn hoarder. Let's see. Don't move. Oh, God. Luckily. What was I saying? That backpack should be at least 5 times bigger. That would give me a back problem. Okay, trying to find fresh beef liver. Okay, yeah, look, this can be a problem. There's a couple of different options. You can actually go for like giblets. There are some people, some butchers that will get like free range, like chickens. We've got some of them that actually supply out of Maria Island, which is a big island on the east coast of Tasmania. And that island actually is really one of those pristine type areas. And that's where I get, if I ever have any chicken, I occasionally have chicken, once a fortnight. It's usually happens. And as I said, I'll eat half the bird one, the other half will go into the fridge and be frozen, and then I'll pull it out. So I will still have, I'm not that scared of poofer from animals. So, anyway, you know me. And pretty much you can get sort of the organ meats of these birds. There are some people that actually have things like, duck, geese and stuff like that, organ meats, like goose liver pate as an example. So that's another option. You don't have to have, I don't know what, everybody's got a bit of a fixation with beef liver and lamb's liver. Go and get yourself some really nice goose liver pate. Really nice. Get yourself a bit of cheese as well, and just sort of, you can really enjoy yourself. Anyway, giving you ideas. Yeah, look, bowerbird, just try some, things like beef liver, goose liver pate and other things like that. There are a whole lot of options that we can use and we can vary, because there's so many different varied sort of nutrient profiles in all these organ meats from different animals. So we shouldn't sort of just religiously stick, I'm just having beef, try other things. Variety, it's the spice of life, isn't it, Shell? Really run. That's how they do it in Ohio. Yes, organ theft. Sounds like the stuff that they do in certain parts of the world. Wrong button. Just knocked myself out. Share screen. Don't leave studio. God almighty. God. Oops, back. I don't want to lose my spot. Where am I? No. Where is it? Here it is. Deficiencies, vegans, supplements. Exactly. Perfect, mate. Perfect. Love it. Yeah, those vegetard hands are very weak and brittle. Oops. No. God, I hate StreamYard. Oh, I lost my spot. We know. Yeah, I know. They are, aren't they, Richard? Damn. That's, yeah. Got to be worried about some of them. They're literally going feral. Your body in general, it depletes. It's happening in your mitochondria. That's where it's happening. It's not a specific organ. It happens everywhere throughout the whole body. Your mitochondria deplete deuterium. So that is what they do. When you hear that, when you've got all these enzymatic pathways, like in glycolysis, and as an example, so you've got lipolysis, glycolysis, you've got the TCA or the Krebs cycle, okay? You're feeding into those sort of things as you're coming in from the complexes, sorry, not complexes, the receptors that are bringing in the nutrients, GLUT4, CD36, blah, blah, they're coming through those. All those stages are actually water stages. They're called dehydrogenase. So you're taking away hydrogens. Dehydrogenase, you get it? So all those enzymes in between all those enzymatic steps, like 10 for basically your glycolysis. So these are all enzymatics where you're dehydrogenating, you're cleaving off the hydrogens. Because remember, you're oxidizing the carbon molecules. Explained that last time. Anyway, we'll try and keep it simple for all the boys and girls. So what you're doing is the body tries to replace that hydrogen with that deuterium with hydrogen isotopes. So that's what sort of happens in that sort of process. It doesn't always, it depends. If you've got too much, there is a certain threshold that the body can manage in depleting when it creates metabolic water and gets rid of out of the actual mitochondria and then out of the cell and pushes it out into the basically the bloodstream, and then from there, urination and out it goes. It's not a you could say a very it varies between how well bodies do it, depending on how healthy they are, in what state the mitochondria are, in all this sort of stuff. So it varies between people in very different ways. But pretty much, it's displacing and getting rid of these heavy isotopes of hydrogen and trying to increase the amount of hydrogen ions that are basically just, your stock standard, hydrogen ions. So you can then push those through the complexes to create protein gradients, which is clear of any damn neutrons. Because remember, you've got hydrogen, basically, proton in the middle, and an electron on the outside. Okay, that's going to be stripped off when it goes through the pump to basically by the complex to be put into the electron chain. And then you've got your NAD, H, your NAD, basically, I'll just call it NAD, that basically just moves. It sort of moves those electrons along between the complexes, anyway, along the electron chain, so the pumps can work, because you need that energy for the pumps to pump the protons into that inner membrane space. So then it can actually get to a certain threshold and get pushed through the nanomotor to rotate at 9,000 RPM. Yes, very fast. Faster than a sports car. Yeah. And we basically can eliminate, by going through those enzymatic pathways, we can eliminate the deuterium. And that's what our body does. It depletes through these water cycles, and then it sort of feeds into the TCA cycle. And that TCA cycle goes through these major, like the citric part, and then it goes through these other major, another two parts. The last one's the most important one, which is called fumarate hydratase. And this is where basically you get the major protein, the major quality of the water that's being produced, the metabolic water that's being produced, and you basically get that going through, in a sense, to your, from fumarate to malate and then oxaloacetate and back through the sort of the citric cycle. Okay, but that last step is where because that sort of comes out from fumarate, is sort of, there's a sort of a connection back to complex 2. Remember, complex 2 doesn't pump, so it has a relationship in terms of affecting the protein gradients, and so that's sort of is involved in the importance of deuterium depletion, and getting it out, in a sense. I mean, as Laszlo Boris usually says, fumarate hydratase really determines whether you're depleting or not. And if you're not, well, then you're basically pushing up growth pathways, and you're moving your organelles, which is, your mitochondria, we call them organelles. You're pushing them more into a glycolytic state, which is what makes a cell less efficient, can't repair itself and do a lot of things, becomes more senescent, and it can also become cancerous as well. So deuterium is a very important element in cellular health and mitochondrial health. So keep that in mind. Yes. And it's a fight between, as Ron Rosdale would say, it's a fight between repair and damage. And damage always wins, unfortunately. We're decaying. We basically damage faster than we can repair. So you really need to try and actually make sure if you want to live longer, basically, keep the fucking sugar out of your diet. Simple as that. If you don't want to live longer, add as much sugar as possible, because you will damage more of your mitochondria over time. And as you damage more of your mitochondria, you overwhelm them with deuterium, you will basically be fucked. So, yep, it does. It does, unfortunately. Exactly. But see, I've cut back on alcohol, so Bart's actually aging faster than me. I'm the younger one. I told you, even though I'm older, but I'm still the younger one. That's why I'm more childish. You should know that. God, you know me too long. What are you guys getting up to is all I can say. God almighty. I thought I was bad. It's a natural thing. You need your oxalate juice, mate. Okay, is it possible to overdo it on the sardines? My urine smells fishy. Okay. Bit concerning about overload. I always knew you were fishy. Probably the only thing that you would be basically doing is you'd be probably thinning out your blood. That's probably one thing. So if you got a cut, it would take longer to heal. So, but remember the other thing: omega-3s from fish oil and all that are really good for the body, and also they have the lowest deuterium of all fats. Exactly. Pork is the next best, better than tallow. So lard is 115 parts per million, where now omega-3 is around the low 100 but I can't remember what EPA is, but I know that DHA is 102. Oh God, no, memory's failing. Okay, so yes, maybe I need more fish. That's it. Need to be eating more sardines. Damn. What was his? Liver problem. Too much alcohol. I actually remember an alcoholic years ago when I was young. He had really he was really skinny, emaciated, and really yellowy type skin. And he wasn't looking very well. Yes, not a good thing. Yes, when you get at that stage, you need to basically take high doses of alpha lipoic acid to reverse severe, these sort of psoriasis, these sort of severe liver damage. And it's not a guarantee thing, but it can help. I know that it's been used for, I've mentioned it before about toxicity from mushrooms and a whole lot of other things, and saved people's lives. But you would basically, it'd be a protocol of alpha lipoic acid. It'd be basically choline to export out the fat, which you need. You would need to bake milk thistle to help support the enzymatic side that actually heals the actual liver itself as well, and reduces the sort of the damaging byproducts that are in there. So that would be the sort of focus, that sort of a three-prong attack from those three supplements that I would focus. I hope none of my subs have those sort of issues. If you do have an issue with alcohol and all that, please get yourself, into some sort of detox system or protocol or clinic. Don't take risks with your life, please. If for most, buy cow's liver is around what, $80. You're kidding me, for 6 kilograms. But then I know it's grass-fed. Most lamb here are given grain, sadly. Really? Shit. Well, luckily in the Central Highlands in Tasmania, pretty much it's all this really nice green grass, and you can see it from there. it's all yellowy and it's all it's high in omega 3s, and it's really high quality sort of stuff. So we're pretty lucky in that regard. But yeah, I know, look, at some areas where there's drought, there's issues. Yes, if it's Australia, it's usually silage and stuff like that, so it's not as bad. Here's Jared. G'day, mate.
Headphones on yet?
You've been chasing butter around the place.
Yeah.
You've been on pussy patrol. Oops. Anyway, yeah, so that's expensive, I can tell you. But anyway, $80 for.
There we go. Yeah, no, sorry, I just don't have a whole lot of time tonight, so I figured I'd drop on while I eat. Oh, yep. I have my excellent safety goggles here.
Ah, good to see. Good to see.
These are the $15.
Very stylish, mate. Very
red
stylish.
Light therapy glasses. Yeah, not bad, right? Actually, they cover a lot more than the blue blocks would.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dollar coverage per dollar. I think these are a better deal.
What do you think, Shell? Stylish?
You can see my lighting setup in them. I'll just hold still for a second while Luke screenshots me, I'm sure.
I hope Luke. Yeah, Luke's probably done that. That's the reason why I turned off this. So what was I going to do? Yeah. Now. So that's. I'm just looking in comparison. I'm not even going to do the conversion and all that. So it's about 3 times the cost of liver that what I would be paying in Australia, in Tasmania. Shit, that's very expensive. I just did it because I usually get it 500 grams, half a kilo, and it's only about $2 to $3. So it's about look, most of the time it's about I can sometimes get it down to $2. So it's what I paid last night, $2.19 or something like that. So it's not very expensive. So it's 3 times as expensive. Fuck me, you're paying a bit, mate. He likes to lather himself with oil. You should know that. You know, those feathers, put a bit of oil on, rub it in. Can't help himself. Oops. Where am I? Don't do it. Mine's constantly in dirty mode. I think that's why Shell likes me. She comes here to basically just listen to a dirty old man.
I'm just setting up my window arrangement here so I can type in the chat when I need to. I couldn't see the question.
It feels like it sometimes. It's got a mind of its own.
Daniel's telling me to stop talking so much. So I know he means it ironically, but I'm just going
to... You're munching the food. It's probably the food.
I have a pretty nice plate of food tonight. I got some pastured eggs and some cod fillets and some botarga and brie and a little bit of cheddar.
Sounds really nice. Yes, the brie part especially.
I'll brie to that.
I actually had I took a large piece of brie about that big down because yesterday with my mate I had 2 big steaks, that big, mate, double steaks. hell, we struggled to get through them, I can tell you. Because I'd taken some sausages as well, and he goes, "We're not going to have those. You realise that?" And because I didn't, because I brought some cheese and some other stuff, and he had actually had these big steaks, and I go, "Shit, where did you buy those?" I said, "Oh, so I suspect the other stuff, you know." So we had a bit of some of the cheese, some brie, and all that. He had some pickled. He's a low carb sort of his sort of approach, and he just had some like pickled cucumbers and stuff like that with a mother in it. So it's, you know, sort of like a probiotic type, which is not too bad. I actually tried one myself because I hadn't had pickled cucumbers for years. Dad used to make them, but you know, so I did not hold back in that regard. I'll hand my carnival card in later. You know, you guys can rip it up. It seems like it, Kitty. He's definitely is a seabird. You know, we'll have to call him, you know, the sardine hunter. You're one of your secret admirers, mate.
Hey, Necro. I haven't seen Necro around lately. Good to see you. Yes.
Definitely looking fancy.
I only got these for the fanciness and so that I can look down on you. It's remarkable how it washes things out. It's more difficult to see with everything red than I would have thought. Navigating my phone, for example, is very different. You don't realize how much you're taking from color signaling until it's not there.
Look very stylish, mate. Look very stylish. Also, with the clothing looks very stylish. The real importance of consuming collagen, connective tissue, isn't getting complete protein enough. Depends. You know, some people maybe coming off a vegan diet and need more, you know, collagen type, you know, more enzymes, you know, to heal a bad gut. So you may need far more. If you're just basically maintaining the body, you should always get a bit of connective tissue. It's useful, you know. So like steak on a bone and sort of gnaw away the sort of connective tissue on the bone. You know, it's a sort of the steaks that I usually have, like the pork steaks, have got really thick type of fats with the skin on, and there you're going to get all the collagenous type material. You don't need to actually buy collagen. You know, if you want basically a lot of collagenous type material, just go and buy a whole lot of pork fat. You get plenty of that sort of stuff. The glycine, glutamic acid, all these sort of things, you'll get plenty. So, yeah, people pay far too much and waste far too much money on expensive collagen powders. So don't waste your money. Just go and get basically pork fat trimmings with the skin and the fat on there. It's really good for your collagen. So your connective tissue and stuff like that, you know. So I usually gnaw through bones, small bones from birds. Yes, I do. I will gnaw your bones. I will grind them down with my teeth. So yes, and that's another way of getting plenty of collagen. So, and not only that, because of the high K2 that I've got in my diet, a lot of people will tell me, because in the past my teeth were very soft, I couldn't, now I can gnaw through an actual bone, a cooked bone, obviously, but I can gnaw through a bone that is that long and that thick, and I can gnaw through it. I couldn't do that before because my teeth now and my jaw is much stronger. And also, it's
I don't
good.
know if I could do that. I've never tried. It depends on how
And
long the bone's cooked, I suppose.
And it's also good to maintain stronger jaw, because that compression on bones, it also improves the strength and it actually improves the jaw. So you want to actually improve your jaw and the sort of facial sort of to have a much strong. You need to. That's what our primitive ancestors did. That sort of stuff. I know there are other people out there that what is it? I think I saw something on YouTube, on a YouTube commercial once, where somebody was promoting some sort of jaw exercise thing. I don't know much about it, so I'm not promoting anything like that. But if you're eating too much soft food, you're not going to basically be using those muscles, and you're not going to be basically, it's like impact exercise. Like I would do like jumping jacks and other impact exercises throughout the day. And I do those because those impact actually strengthen the bones. So you need compression, you need some of that to sort of strengthen that sort of side. So yeah, keep that in mind as well. It's not just what you put in, but your physical activities and other things that you do that maintain the muscle skeletal structure. You need to exercise those as well in combination with good food. Okay, so I'm sinking pretty quick. Had a great day or night. Be safe. Okay. See ya.
I'll be right back. I just forgot something downstairs.
What about me? Fuck. I'm the old goat, aren't I? The old Greek goat. I hope you're working on a stylish, it should be a stylish milk merchant. Anyway, so Shell's off to bed, I suspect. Yeah, I know. What can one say? I just have to put up with him. The things that I have to put up with. It's painful, but somebody has to endure it. Okay, I better put this one up because I actually forgot all about it. It's coming, Luke. How did you optimize fetal brain development? Couldn't help it, could you, mate? You could not help it. Actually, Deuterium is good for the children. Their genes are certain genes are upregulated in children to basically utilize deuterium as a growth factor. So yes, less of a problem for kiddies. Exactly.
Talking about me while I'm gone, I assume.
Yeah, basically. Somebody has to. Somebody's building a new computer rig. Yes. Hey, this is a beauty channel as well. Next, I'll be promoting new clothing, a new clothing line.
I've known people
Unlikely.
who had to loosen their hat from chewing gum from the sides of their head, getting a little bit more muscular from their jaw, constantly working. Maybe they just wore really tight hats, though. I don't know.
I don't, never heard of it, but yeah, I'll take your word. Bubonic plague. Yeah. Look, there's been bubonic plagues in North America as well. It's not only China. This is actually happening in the Inner Mongolia region of China. There's been cases of bubonic plague. There have been cases of bubonic plague in parts of Europe. There have been places in North America as well. I know in the US, was it last year or the year before, there were a couple of cases of bubonic plague as well. So bubonic plague hasn't gone. The difference is we just have, good antibiotics and other things, medications that basically keep it at bay. It's still out there amongst, rodents, and it's still basically occasionally those fleas will get from the rodent to the human. So it hasn't gone away, guys. The difference is we've got the means of dealing with it. So, it doesn't really get out of hand. Yes, I can see the position that I'm put in in regards to these animals.
Last after 5, what are those goats?
Yeah,
Rams.
then I'm done. I'm done after 5. Exactly. They got more buck, mate. Richard, they got more buck. Cats, Jared's into pussies, he loves pussies.
I just
and
got 2 more.
And and he sort of he uses milk on them to entice them with milk. I tell you, he's a crafty milk mafioso. If he turns up, keep your kittens at bay. Keep them away.
What good is raw milk if I can't use it to
Exactly.
make friends and influence people, as it were?
That's it. Look, he's gone. Thanks, mate, for all the stuff. Appreciate it.
Did he had some good? Did he submit any good?
We had. I'll just quickly.
He often posts them in Bart's Discord as well. I know where to find them, but it's more fun if I see it with you.
Let me just turn that off, and I will share the screen. So that's his first one. Me and my laborious answers and questions. It's a big load. Super load. There's a supplemental thing that we were talking about. So the vegan approach to supplements.
That's good.
And my view on deuterium and milk and childhood. It's a new app. It's called the Harry Serpanos app. Do get it. Do download it, please. My George,
playing your podcast is akin to playing Beethoven or something for a fetus.
Exactly. there's nothing like I actually had somebody said to me that they use my videos to relax in the evening, or sometimes even go to sleep, and I'm going, okay. Interesting.
I can understand that. Sometimes just a long video of somebody talking, or two people maybe, without commercials, without loud music, bumpers on either end.
Yeah. Look, it's probably there probably is some truth in that. That's true, especially my live stream is going 3 hours or whatever. And I've got another one, the Eurasian one tonight as well, because it's the fortnight on a fortnightly basis. So I'm doing those now on a fortnightly basis as well. So there'll be one tonight at 6 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time, and wherever else you are in the world will be on your time.
So you don't do two every Sunday, just two every other Sunday.
Yeah. So today's the 2. So that just covers, so I can get people from Europe, like the UK in particular, parts of Europe and parts of Asia, that usually miss out this earlier one, because it's usually tends to be quite early in the morning in their parts of the world. So they're still sleeping. So it gives them a chance to basically every fortnight to come on and ask questions that usually they don't get a chance to ask. So
yeah, it would only be almost 4:15 in the morning in England.
Precisely, it's quite early, so it's it gives him a chance as well. It's usually the North America, Australasia, North America, and the British Isles are the sort of the key sub areas for me. And then I've got a few others around, like in Germany and other parts as well, here and there, which is good as well. Some of my German friends and some of my, actually my mate, Sean, he does have citizenship rights, and his kids are half German, so they can live in Germany if they want to as well. So basically, yes, I know people from all over the world, so to speak, in that regard. But yes, so even last week, I think I was ranting about, when I rant about different countries, I mean the elites of those countries. Okay, so let's be quite clear. I don't have a racist bone in my body, so I'm very much a person who believes that the world becomes a much peaceful and better place with a multicultural type approach, and people being more inclusive and all that. When we're talking about PC culture, that pisses me off is the sort of stuff when it becomes, sort of crazy stuff, like the sort of idiotic stuff that the vegans come up with, and all these moralistic other nonsensical stuff. We're talking about what I believe is human culture is a benefit to us all. The diverse human culture and the things that since we've come out of Africa, the diverse things that we were able to produce and create is a testament to, the greatness of our species. Something to be admired and something to be cherished and celebrated, in my book. But at the same time, when we become where controversial things sometimes have to be discussed. There are a whole lot of issues and all that. And I mean, I know that I noticed somebody actually let me know that somebody actually unsubbed, because I was talking about Israel last week, and I was talking about how they were developing new innovation and stuff like that. I was not talking about the Arab-Israeli conflict. I was just talking about economics and technology and stuff like that, and them creating innovation and stuff like that in these sort of areas. I don't believe that, and I have Israeli friends, and they are opposed to the sort of apartheid attitude of their own elites as well, because it's just wrong. You cannot keep a whole population and under control without any civil rights or any voting rights or whatever. It's just, this is the way the Germans actually corralled in the Second World War the Jews into all these shanty towns to control them. It's no different. So it's wrong in that regard. And a lot of Israelis basically agree that it's wrong. And there are many even Orthodox Israelis that basically for their own religious reasons believe that the state of Israel is a Zionist invention, not one from God. And so they have an opposition from it from a religious point of view. So it's a very diverse political, and that's why I said I'm not going to get involved in the politics of the Middle East because, it's just intractable. You're never going to please anyone in that regard. I was just talking about that how societies can invest in certain other ways that they can actually innovate and improve their productivity of their societies and, to provide better for their citizens. That's a completely different message and getting into the other sort of conflicts and stuff like that are in many cases intractable. And whatever I say is going to make no bloody difference whatsoever. So if I offended anyone for whatever reason, I'm sorry, but it wasn't my intention. I try to keep away from politics as much as possible and focus on the politics of my country, Australia. I live in Australia. This is where directly the politics of this country affect me. And that's where I focus mostly on if I bring up anything. But mostly it's just sort of idiotic stuff that I come across. I don't think any of us could be, if we were in the same sort of position or whatever, could we do better? Maybe not. Sometimes certain things are so difficult or intractable, it's really hard to basically do better. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, in a sort of situation with some people in the community or others. So it's not always, these things are not always easy in that regard. But certain things that are quite clearly violations of human rights, quite clearly violations of, proper behavior of societies, those things need to be called out. An apartheid state is not acceptable in the 21st century, by anyone. What the Burmese did to the Rohingyas, forcing them out at gunpoint across the border, that's unacceptable. A number of things that are happening around the world, they are unacceptable. You may have differences, different communities, and I'm not getting into the politics of the communities, their differences and all that. But at the same time, you cannot basically go around mistreating populations because that's what was happening in the 30s. We shouldn't be doing it in the 21st century. It's just unacceptable. It's this sort of genocidal type. I thought we need to get beyond some of that behavior. It's just wrong in that regard, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway. But if you've got a different opinion, that's fine. You can, if you believe in genocide, good for you. I'm not part of that. I'm not part of that sort of, thing. Now, what's happening in Palestine is not genocide. So if anybody sort of don't confuse, I'm talking about the Rohingyas here. It's just basically an apartheid system, very oppressive and very limited rights to that population. And there are a couple of other areas around the world as well that are very similar, where populations are basically being discriminated severely and all that, which is wrong. But and we should point those out, the wrongs. But we should point out the achievements of different societies. When they've done good and things that we can learn from. There's nothing wrong with saying, yep, they've really done well here. And put a positive. It doesn't have to be all negative. This sort of, I don't like being, it's like when I look at the US, there are a lot of positives. There are some, there are also negatives. Every society, my society, is no different. I suspect Jared's society, Canada, is no different. There are negatives and positives in every society. There's nothing wrong with pointing those out and wanting societies to become better. There's a complete difference, and there's a complete difference if you basically say, "Oh, all these people are bad."
I don't agree with restricting speech based on your beliefs like that. That turns into self-censorship.
Exactly.
But I mean, I understand not wanting to get political. on a nutrition channel because
it is a
just,
nutrition.
It just derails the conversation regardless of whether you're worried about offending people or not.
Yeah,
but
precisely.
I mean, obviously I try not to be a jerk about it, but I don't personally feel that I have any responsibility not to offend the person that I'm speaking to. I certainly am not going to moderate my own speech to the degree that I will never offend anyone at all.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same frame of mind. I'm going to basically put my opinion forward on different subject matters and discuss different issues, but pretty much this, as I said, occasionally we've gone into other areas, but my key focus on this is nutrition and giving you guys information how to help your health. So basically that is my key focus in that regard. And I know the lady that basically she unsubscribed to me. I won't mention the name. You guys know, but she basically brought up the conflict and all that and said, why didn't I discuss that? Because my YouTube channel isn't involved in politics of the Arab-Israeli conflict or any other thing. I may have an opinion on that I think what's happening there is there's a lot of wrongs that are happening.
No, it's fair not to have to qualify any mention of a problematic issue with
exactly.
I don't agree with X or whatever when you just want to comment on a certain aspect of
precisely.
it. It's not any mentioning of a topic certainly is an endorsement of that topic either.
Exactly. It's it isn't. I was just more focused on this sort of Silicon Valley type approach that what they've done over there, the sort of investments and creating a sort of their own sort of Silicon Valley type thing and lifting the productivity of their society and all that. That could be an example for other societies to look at implementing something similar to liberate the, you could say, the intellectual and productive capacities of their own populations. Because I suspect there are people in every society, whether it's Australia, Canada, or any other society, which have got capacities for innovation, but have limited capacity to basically achieve those innovations. It's like, for instance, somebody can be a great marketing guru or great entrepreneur, and they can be in Australia and really shine, or they can be somewhere in Africa and be on the side of the road selling bananas. But they may have very similar skill sets, but their society doesn't give them the capacity to achieve their full potential, so to speak. So it was more these sort of things that I sort of tend to focus on, is how to get better human potential out there and improve on the human potential, that sort of stuff. And it sort of covers my sort of dietary side, how to make people healthier, improve longevity, all these sort of things. So it's sort of the more rounded way without really getting into the political trenches, so to speak. How societies achieve that it's up to those societies to work it out amongst their citizens who vote their leaders in. It's not for me to tell them who to vote in. It's for them to take responsibility for their own societies, in a sense. But anyway, let's move on. My jaw dropped. I expected children being more carb tolerant, but deuterium, how? They are more carb tolerant. They actually take in both carbs in terms of your lactose, your milk lactose, and a lot of these things are deuterium. Deuterium is a growth factor. But when you're a child, your genes basically control the growth. So they use that additional deuterium to grow as a growth factor. It's the plant actually puts it into fruit and things and the sugar. Why? Because these are the things that it wants to grow. That's how the plant actually puts it in. Fruit is, when you combine it with fat, food, and engage the Randle cycle, you will basically get a lot of growth factor. But on top of that, the deuterium actually also can have an effect on, because remember we talked about the sort of the protein gradients, sort of if you need to deplete more, you may not be burning off that energy, so it can actually be utilized. Because remember also, they have a lot of brown adipose tissue, so they actually have a lot of uncoupled mitochondria, the children. So their whole physiology is very different in that regard. So, and they do pull deuterium out of there, because deuterium is a natural growth factor. That's another reason why when you become an adult, you do not want to be eating sugar and all these things that have got deuterium. And you don't want these growth factors in your body or these growth signaling molecules. So you need to keep them low. And that's the thing. But as a child, you definitely can do with more for growth. So there's nothing wrong in the child at all. Yeah. So they actually suck it out of their mothers. Mothers can actually have certain diseases or whatever, and they can actually reverse those diseases while pregnant, because you're actually depleting the mother of deuterium, and you actually improve her health. So I'm not promoting pregnancy as a cure for everything. Please don't take that way. Harry said you need to get pregnant to get better.
Isn't there something to do with stem cell production in pregnant women as well?
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are at play due to those sort of growth factors, and they're being all directed towards a child.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a sort of a benefit that comes to women as well as a consequence. While the downside for women is that they get depleted in micronutrients.
Yeah.
That's where the big downside is.
Have you posted your deuterium depletion protocol as its own video?
Nah, not yet. Yeah, that'll happen later. I'm sort of decided to do some of these more less sciencey sort of stuff. I'm trying to basically explain, if you've got this problem, do this, do it this way. Mm-hmm. I think it's got more value for people.
Well, I think you could do something similar with deuterium in the sense that, like, you don't necessarily need to explain that right down to the exact mechanism. Of
I will. Yeah, it's something. It's a low priority. It's a low priority at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah, but it will happen. This year sometime it will happen. I will do, as I said, I'm going to do a series on light, magnetism, water, and all these sort of things in the most rudimentary and simple way, so people can understand it. So I will explain exactly what happens in those folds, in the way melatonin is produced. I'll but in a very rudimentary way to explain it. So all these sort of things.
Dolan at Evolutionary Life is very interested in those three things, specifically with water and magnetism and.
Yep. So it'll be basically in a way that is easy to understand. It'll be basically Jack Crew's light. That's what it will basically be. So it won't be in the way that Jack or others promote or explain it, and it literally goes over people's heads. It will just basically be in really plain English.
Yeah, I think that focusing on the actionable information is the most important for reaching the most people.
Yeah, it'll just basically explain how these things work,
Yeah.
And I'll just be doing simple diagrams, probably do some of my own diagrams, and just put little notes. So it may look, because it'll be probably done in some sort of graphics, the paint program or something like that. So it'll be very rudimentary. It'll be rough in a sense, but it will just point out those key things, but in really plain English. So I'll be, I may actually put the scientific terminologies like in brackets, but the other words will be sort of more, so it's easier for people to understand. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to shift my away from, and it's one thing that I said even to Bart when I first started. It's sometimes why Bart used to bring me on to, like, goes, oh, I've got a methylation thing that I want to do. Can you come on? Or I've got a 5G. Can you come on and just explain in plain English? Because he knows I can really do it in plain English. I can just pull it apart and just explain in very simplistic terms as much as possible. Well, I think he struggles a bit because of his academic background. So because he's used to using those terms continuously, where I've sort of learned, what I've done is I've looked at all the terms, and then I've actually in brackets created my own notes and said that means this, and I've created my own sort of plain English language to describe the same thing. And that's how I actually can learn. I can understand the thing much deeper than rather a reductionist terminology based explanation, which is what most people learn it from a textbook and then regurgitate in the same way.
Yeah, often as you're pursuing that depth of information with like a profound understanding of a given issue, you forget just exactly how profound your understanding might be relative to someone with no understanding at all.
Exactly.
Right? And certainly if you're not teaching it all the time from a beginner's level, then you sort of do lose that knowledge mobilization sort of rhetoric that you need, I guess, that simple vocabulary.
Yeah, and that's been my approach from the beginning, to try and explain complex things in the most simplistic way I can to people, so they can actually get it. They can understand how things work. And if people don't get it, they can ask me again, and I'll give it another go to see what I can actually explain it a bit more simpler, just so that people can get it. In that regard, they don't need to know all these, like, as I said, all the steps. For me to basically say, oh, well, this step does this step does that, well, that's useless. It's much better to understand like lipolysis. You're going from this, you're going down to pyruvate, and through that, you're basically stripping off those hydrogens. So you're left with basically those carbons to oxidize. And then, what is going to come out of that? Well, carbon dioxide. What organ gets rid of that? The lungs. So people can understand it in a way they can get it in their head. That's my sort of approach, because I could use all the fancy terminology, flash the sort of studies, and go, that, and basically baffle everyone and basically achieve nothing. So I might as well be talking to myself. Do you know what I'm getting at? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people do that on YouTube. I don't know whether they're looking at trying to impress people by that they can use all these terms and all that. I mean, when I talk to Bart, I probably use these terms, but that's different because Bart understands the terms and understands their meanings. But when I'm talking to the average Joe Blow, I need to make it, consumable for them, so they can actually make use of it, because otherwise, why am I here? Why am I wasting my time? So, and that's why Bart he's got his Patreon stuff for the more sciencey stuff that he does for people that are interested and want to pay for that. And then he sort of does a more, let me just pull these, what are these people saying? Let me pull it apart and explain to you why they're wrong. So he goes into the studies explaining why statistically, why these things are wrong and what are they saying wrong in that regard. So he does that approach, where my approach is basically trying to explain things like this sort of stuff, but a very non-sciencey way. Pim does a completely different thing. She focuses on addictions and other things. That's important because a lot of people do have them. Mm-hmm. So we all sort of focus in a sense on different characteristics. And then there are other people out there in the carnivore community that are focused on things like, micronutrients, and sort of where can you get them and stuff like that, or food, different types of ways of cooking. I don't do cook stuff. I'm not interested, but there are people out there that would like to, how do you make your carnivore foods or treats or whatever? And so there's a place for everyone, and in our community, and we can all contribute in a number of varied different ways.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that there's a lot to be said for clear communication and for the approachable version of an idea as well. And again, I think the actionable information is what most people in the community are after. They trust the depth of your knowledge, whether they understand everything you're explaining or not. So once you get to the part where you say what they need to do, is where that's why most people are watching, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, you want to really know how can I action that knowledge in my life in the best way to get the best results. So and that's why I sort of, like I earlier explained to people about the homeostasis between the different electrolytes and how they work, but in a very rudimentary. I try to keep the terminology as simple as possible and down as possible, so people can understand and say, okay, that's how it works. That's how this. So if I've created an electrolyte imbalance, then I have to do this, and then sort of rebalance it by doing this other step, and then I'm good to go. That's what people want to know, how to do those sort of things. They don't want to basically be baffled with terminology. And look at what this study says. I mean, fine. Great, but that's not really helping the people that have got issues out there with potential electrolyte imbalances or other problems.
I think a rapid fire video of purely actionable information would do very well.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at doing smaller videos of that sort on different subject matters. So that's I'm moving away from the sort of focus, but at the same time, they do take time. I actually enjoy the live streams because I don't have to do any work. I just talk.
Just pontificate.
The knowledge is there and it just comes out. I don't have to basically refer to notes, and I don't have to basically, do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm lazy, but I find it much easier. What was it? I just blurt it out, so it's easier for me in that regard.
All right.
Because the other thing takes a bit more time. Like you've seen a few things that I've done with the selenium and the seafood and stuff like that, and that you have to sort of create all these different, and some of that recording was on different dates. Like the stuff that was all the final stuff was actually done on a different day, was done 2 days later, and so then I basically had to cut that, insert those yellow sort of with all the different fish and the different quantities and all that, and then cut that and make sure that the audio I sounded the same, and I had to do the audio twice, and I go, okay, now it sounds right,
Welcome to video production.
Yeah, exactly, and it's so fucking time consuming. People don't realize, because I've got a regular job, so I'm working from morning until evening. So because I take usually 2 hours of lunch, so I have a long lunch for a walk and a meal, and as a consequence, I end up working later. So then I'm basically sort of winding down, getting ready for the next day. I mean, it's people that have got regular jobs and have got, family commitments and everything else understand, your time is precious trying to fit things in. So that's why I do these long 3-hour type sessions, so I can get as much information out to help people, actionable information. So they ask me questions, I can give them actionable solutions. And, in time, slowly, I do a few vids here and there and insert those for that reason, and that's the approach. Where before I was thinking, a lot of people they use their live streams for very different purposes, where I sort of use them as an information delivery sort of, and a bit of humor and stuff like that. Let's have a bit of good time in that regard as well.
Well, Harry, it's 20 to 1 in the morning where I am.
Yeah, look, you better get to bed.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm glad I made it at the end of the stream.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate you coming on, and I realise what it is a struggle for you and all that.
Yeah, it isn't always, but just Saturdays for me tend to be a little bit hectic, I guess, because I'm trying to clear my schedule so I don't have to do anything on Sunday, because I prefer to rest on Sunday.
Exactly. It's past now 3 hours, so I'm going to be right after you, going to be winding this down as well. So if anybody's got a really important question they want to ask, they are desperate to ask.
Oh, I see all the good nights rolling in.
Yeah,
everyone's so kind.
They are. It's a good crowd. We've got a good crowd here.
Good vibes. Oh man, I changed my shirt. I was wearing a shirt that says positive vibes only earlier, but the font's like I don't know what it's like. It's a 90s band font or something. I don't like
Ah,
it, but I like the message.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good. I appreciate you coming on. Yeah. So tomorrow morning, you'll have an opportunity to check the first part with Bart.
Was he on?
Yeah, he was on earlier. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So he's I've said to him, if you want to pop into my live stream anytime, because he's basically sort of winding down, he's sort of doing other things at the moment.
Yeah.
So he may be popping in now and then to my live streams. So it'll depend on his circumstances. So that'll be good to see him. So it'll be so a very different type of style.
All right. Well, have a good night, Harry. Thanks for having me, as always.
Thanks, mate. And Take care, and
see you next
appreciate
week.
it. See you, mate. Well, yes, off with the felines. Well, guys, it's 3 hours and 10 minutes, and we've been doing this for quite some time. So I've got another live stream tonight, as you guys know. So I'm going to wind down, go for a walk, have a meal right after, and then get ready for my next live stream, which will be at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate it. Take care, and see some of you tonight and the rest of you next week. See you guys. Bye.